Hello, and welcome to Super English Talks. My name is Jara, and I am very happy that you are here today. My only goal is simple. I want to help you find your English voice. I want to help you feel comfortable, confident, and ready to use English in your real life. This podcast is not just another boring English lesson. We are not only going to talk about grammar rules or long vocabulary lists. Those things are important, yes, but they are not everything. Here, we try something different. We turn learning into living. We learn English in a way that feels real, natural, and connected to everyday life. In every episode, we will step into the real world together. We will listen to true-to-life stories, stories about real people, real mistakes, and real successes. Some stories will be funny, like asking for the wrong thing in a coffee shop. Some will be about challenges, like feeling nervous on your first day at work. And some will be about happy moments, like making a new friend in a new city. Why do we share these stories? Because language lives in stories. Stories show us how English sounds in real conversations, not just in textbooks. When you listen carefully, you will start to hear the music of English. You will hear its rhythm, the natural way people speak, the everyday expressions that don't always appear in grammar books. By the end of each episode, I don't just want you to learn a few new words. I want you to feel different. I want you to feel more ready, more confident, and more brave to step out of silence and into real conversations. So, if you are ready to stop only studying English and finally start using it, then let's take a deep breath together, relax, and begin our journey. Let me start with a very simple question. Have you ever misunderstood someone in English, or has someone misunderstood you? Just because of pronunciation? If yes, don't worry. It happens to all of us, even people who speak English very well. Let me tell you a true story about my friend Leo. A few years ago, Leo traveled to London for the first time. He was so excited. He had studied English for many years in his home country. He could read English books, write essays, and even watch some movies without subtitles. He thought he was well prepared. On his second day in London, Leo walked into a small convenience store near his hotel. He just wanted to buy something very simple, a bottle of water. He went to the counter, smiled politely at the cashier, and said, "Hello, can I have a bottle of water, please?" The cashier was a young man with a friendly face. But when he heard Leo, he looked a little confused. He asked, "A bottle of what, mate?" Leo repeated his request, this time more slowly and carefully. "A bottle of water." The cashier frowned and tried to guess. "Butter?" he asked. "Do you want a bottle of butter?" Now Leo was the one who was confused. He thought, "Why would I want a bottle of butter? That makes no sense." He shook his head and repeated the word again, this time even louder. Water.
Water.
He even made a drinking gesture with his hand to show what he meant. Finally, the cashier understood. His face lit up and he said, "Oh, water," pronouncing the word in the London way, with the T sound softer, almost like wah. Then he quickly grabbed a cold bottle of water from the fridge and gave it to Leo. In that short moment, Leo learned something that no classroom and no textbook had ever taught him. He knew the word water. He knew how to spell it. He knew its meaning perfectly. But he did not know how differently people can pronounce the same word in real life. That experience stayed in his memory. From then on, Leo listened more carefully to how people around him pronounced words. He realized that English is not just about knowing words, it's also about hearing them in different ways. And this is what I want you to take from his story. Don't worry if you are misunderstood sometimes. It's not failure, it's learning. Every small mistake, every funny misunderstanding, every moment of confusion is a chance to improve. So, as we continue today's episode, I want you to remember Leo's story. Listen closely, not only to the words, but also to the rhythm, the sound, and the feeling of the language. That's how your English will grow stronger day by day. It was such a tiny difference, just the sound of one letter. But that small sound was enough to create a big problem in communication. This shows us something very important. Listening to real English, spoken in a natural way, is not just helpful, it's essential. The more you listen to native speakers from different places, the more your brain begins to adapt. You start to notice the different rhythms, the different sounds, and even the different melodies of English. For example, the word water can sound one way in London, a little different in New York, and even softer in Australia. And sometimes, when people speak quickly, they link words together, so they almost sound like one long word. It's a lot like music. Imagine learning a song by only looking at the notes on a piece of paper. You might know the notes, but you won't really feel the song until you hear it played. It's the same with English. You can read the words in a book, but you only understand the real music of the language when you listen to it. And once you hear that music clearly, speaking becomes much easier. You start to copy the rhythm, the tone, the flow. And suddenly, other people can understand you more naturally. Now, let's move to another challenge many learners face: idioms and slang. Idioms are little phrases where the meaning is not clear from the individual words. If you try to understand them word by word, they don't make sense. But native speakers use them all the time, and if you don't know them, conversations can feel very confusing. Let me tell you a story about my cousin, Clara. Clara is a very talented graphic designer. She got an amazing job at a big marketing company in Canada. Her English was already very strong. She knew all the technical words she needed for her work, things like layout, branding, typography. But on her very first day at work, she ran into a problem. She was sitting in a team meeting. Her new manager, Susan, was explaining a big new project with a lot of energy and excitement. At the end of the meeting, Susan looked around the room and said, "All right, everyone. We need to get the ball rolling on this as soon as possible." Clara froze. Get the ball rolling? She immediately pictured a huge ball being pushed across the floor. She thought, what does a ball have to do with marketing? She felt too nervous to ask in front of everyone, so she just smiled and nodded like the others. Later that day, she quietly asked one of her new colleagues, a friendly man named Mark, what it meant. Mark laughed kindly and explained, "Get the ball rolling just means to start a project or activity." Suddenly, everything made sense. It was like a light bulb switched on in Clara's head. She realized that English was not only about grammar and vocabulary, it was also about these colorful, creative phrases that people use to make their conversations more lively. After that day, Clara started carrying a small notebook. Every time she heard an expression she didn't understand, she wrote it down. Later, she would ask Mark or look it up. Very quickly, her notebook was filled with idioms. She learned that bite the bullet means to do something difficult or unpleasant even if you don't want to. She learned that break a leg is actually a way to wish someone good luck, especially before a performance. She learned that hit the nail on the head means to describe a situation perfectly. As her list of idioms grew, Clara began to understand English on a much deeper level. She realized that learning idioms was not only about words, it was about culture, history, and imagination. These phrases connected her to her colleagues and helped her feel more at home in Canada. Even more, this practice made her a better listener. She stopped focusing only on what people said word by word. Instead, she paid attention to how they said things, the tone, the expression, the style. And that made all the difference. So, let's try one simple idiom together right now. I'll say it, and then you repeat it after me. Ready? The phrase is, "It's a piece of cake." That means something is very easy. Let's try it slowly. It's a piece of cake. One more time. It's a piece of cake. That experience taught Clara something very powerful, the importance of active listening in real-life situations. Listening is not just hearing the words. It's about paying attention to the details, the tone, and the way people naturally speak. So now, let's do a little practice together. I'll give you two versions of the same phrase, first the informal, everyday version, and then the more formal version. Your job is simple. Repeat both after me. This way, your brain learns to recognize the two styles, and you become ready to understand English in all its different forms. Ready? Let's go. Informal. What you gettin' now? Formal. What can I get for you? Very good. Let's try another one. Informal. That'll be $4.50, bro. Formal. The total is $4.50. Excellent. Practicing like this helps your brain stay flexible. It's like training your ear to switch between street English and classroom English. The more you do this, the more comfortable you'll feel in real conversations, whether you're speaking to a shop assistant, a teacher, or even a friend. Now, let's explore another common situation that can make learners feel nervous: asking for directions when you're lost in a new city. Of course, these days we all have phones and maps, but what if your battery dies? Or maybe you simply want to connect with a local person instead of looking at a screen. Talking to people is part of the adventure of traveling. So imagine this. You're a tourist named Ben, and you're walking through the charming but confusing streets of Dublin, Ireland. You want to find a famous landmark, Dublin Castle, but the map on your phone isn't clear. You see a kind-looking elderly woman walking her dog, so you take a deep breath, walk up to her, and politely ask, "Excuse me, I'm a bit lost. Could you tell me how to get to Dublin Castle?" The woman smiles warmly and says, "Oh, of course, love. It's not far at all. You just keep going straight down this path until you see the pub with the bright red door. The Celt, it's called. You can't miss it. When you get there, hang a right and walk past the old chemist shop. It's next to a lovely little bookstore. Keep going for about 2 minutes and you'll see the castle gates right in front of you." Now let's pause and think about this. Ben asked a very clear question, but notice how the woman answered. She didn't give street names or numbers like you might find on Google Maps. Instead, she used landmarks: the pub with the red door, the chemist shop, the bookstore. This is very common in real life. People often give directions using things they see every day. For a learner, this can be tricky. You have to listen carefully, not just for words like left or right, but also for those important nouns: pub, bookstore, castle, and adjectives: red door, old shop. Here's a tip. After you receive directions, repeat them back to the person to check your understanding. For example, Ben could say, "Okay, so I go straight until I see the pub with the red door, then I turn right and I'll find the castle after the bookstore." Is that correct? This shows the local person that you were listening carefully, and it gives them a chance to correct you if you made a mistake. It's a simple trick, but it works really well. Now, let's do a quick listening exercise together. Close your eyes if you can, and try to imagine the path as I describe it. Ready? To get to the library, you need to walk to the end of the street. You'll see a big oak tree on the corner. Turn left there and walk past 2 small houses, one blue and one yellow. The library is the next building after the yellow house. It's a large red brick building. Take a moment. Did you picture it? The oak tree, the two small houses, the red brick library? That's the skill you want to practice. When you listen, don't just hear the words, see the picture in your mind. That's active listening in action. Did you picture it? The big oak tree, the left turn, the blue and yellow houses, and finally the red brick library? If you could imagine all of that in your mind, then you just practice something very powerful, active visualization while listening. This kind of mental practice is one of the best tools for improving listening comprehension. When you listen and create pictures in your mind, your brain starts to focus on the important details. You're no longer just hearing words. You're building a map, a story, or a scene inside your imagination. And this is exactly what you need to do when people give you directions in real life. Now, let's move to another very important skill, something that is not about directions, but about connection. I'm talking about the art of small talk. Small talk is that light, casual conversation we have with people we don't know very well. You might use it at a party, during a work conference, or even while waiting in line for coffee. Many learners find small talk difficult because it feels like there's no big topic. It's not about giving important information. It's about building trust and comfort. Let me share a story about my friend Nina. Nina is an accountant. She's very smart, excellent at her job, but also quite shy. One year, she had to attend a big, multi-day conference for work. There were many opportunities to network, to meet other professionals, and to make new contacts. But for Nina, this idea was terrifying. On the first day, during the coffee break, she got her cup of tea and then quickly moved to a corner of the room. She stared at her phone, pretending to be very busy, while all around her people were laughing, chatting, and connecting. She felt completely alone. Her mind was full of questions. What should I say? What if I sound boring? What if they can't understand my accent? The next day, she decided to try a new approach. Instead of forcing herself to talk right away, she just listened. She stood near a small group of people and paid attention to their conversation. To her surprise, they weren't discussing anything difficult or serious. They were talking about very simple things. I can't believe how sunny it is today. I didn't pack for this weather. What did you think of the keynote speaker this morning? I found her points on economic trends really interesting. How was your flight in? I came from Toronto, and it was such an early start. Suddenly, Nina had a revelation. Small talk wasn't a test. It wasn't about saying something amazing. It was just about sharing small experiences. It was about being present, listening, and finding little things in common. So, at the next break, Nina took a deep breath and decided to give it a try. She noticed a woman standing alone, looking at the conference schedule. Nina walked over and said, "Hi, there are so many interesting sessions. It's hard to choose, isn't it?" The woman looked up and immediately smiled, looking relieved. "I know," she said. "I'm trying to decide between the workshop on tax law and the one on digital finance." And just like that, a conversation began. Nina asked where she was from, what kind of work she did, and listened carefully to the answers. When the woman said she was from Vancouver, Nina responded, "Oh, I've always wanted to visit Vancouver. I've heard it's beautiful." It was a small, simple comment, but it showed she was listening and interested. That moment gave her confidence. The key to good small talk is this: ask open-ended questions. These are questions that don't just get a yes or no answer. They invite the other person to share more. For example, closed question: "Do you like the conference?" They can just answer yes. Open question. What do you think about the conference so far? They have to explain their opinion. When you use open-ended questions, conversations flow naturally. You don't need to be funny or brilliant. You just need to be curious and interested. Questions are very important in small talk. But not all questions are the same. Some questions can be answered with only yes or no, and those usually don't lead to a long conversation. For example, if you ask, "Are you enjoying the conference?" the other person might just say, "Yes." And then silence. The conversation is finished. Instead, it's better to ask an open-ended question. An open-ended question invites the other person to share more details. For example, you can ask, "What has been your favorite part of the conference so far?" Now, the other person can talk about the keynote speaker, the workshops, the food, or even the city. You give them space to express themselves. The goal of small talk is not to give a speech. It is not to talk nonstop. The goal is to have a balanced conversation. Think of it like a game of tennis. The ball goes back and forth. They say something, then you respond. You say something, then they respond. Back and forth. Nice and easy. Let's practice a few small talk starters together. I'll say a phrase, and I want you to repeat it out loud. Ready? This is a lovely event, isn't it? Good. So, what brings you here today? Excellent. And a great follow-up question. That sounds interesting.
Could you tell me more about that? Perfect.
Practicing these friendly little phrases will give you more confidence. The next time you are standing in the corner at a conference, a meeting, or even at a bus stop, you will have the tools to start a conversation. Now, let's move to another important situation. A situation where you don't have any visual help. You can't see the person's face. You can't see their body language. You only hear their voice. I'm talking about phone conversations. Phone calls can feel very difficult, especially in another language. Let me tell you a story about my friend Samuel. One afternoon, his internet suddenly stopped working. Samuel needed the internet for his job, so he had to call the customer service line. He felt nervous before calling. He worried. What if I don't understand the person? What if they speak too fast? What if they use difficult technical words? He dialed the number. First, he had to listen to an automated voice and press a few buttons. Finally, he reached a real person. A friendly voice answered. "Thank you for calling Tech Connect. My name is Brenda. How can I help you today?" Samuel took a deep breath and explained.
Brenda.
My internet isn't working. Brenda replied, "I'm sorry to hear that. I can definitely help you. First, can I get your account number, please?" Samuel gave her the number. Then Brenda said, "Okay, thank you. I'm just running a diagnostic on your line now. Please bear with me for a moment." Samuel froze. He didn't understand two phrases, run a diagnostic and bear with me. His heart started beating faster. He thought, "Oh no, I don't understand. What should I do?" But instead of staying silent, Samuel decided to ask. He said, "I'm sorry, what does run a diagnostic mean?" Brenda was kind and helpful. She explained, "It just means I'm running a test from our side to see what the problem is." She also explained, "And bear with me just means please be patient for a moment." Suddenly, Samuel felt better. He understood. The call continued. At one point, Brenda said, "Sir, I'm going to have to put you on hold for a few minutes. Is that okay?" This time, Samuel knew what on hold meant. It means waiting with music until the representative comes back. He confidently replied, "Yes, that's fine." A few minutes later, Brenda returned with a solution. The internet was fixed. This experience taught Samuel a very important lesson. On the phone, it is always okay to ask for clarification. It is always better to say, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?" Or "Could you speak a little more slowly?" than to pretend you understand and miss something important. Let's practice some useful phone phrases. Repeat after me. Hello, I'm calling about an issue with my internet. Good. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please? Excellent. Could you explain what that means?
Perfect.
The more you practice these simple sentences, the more confident you will feel the next time you pick up the phone. Sometimes, when you're on the phone, you may hear a word or phrase you don't know. In that moment, it's important not to panic. You can politely ask for help. For example, you can say, "I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that term. Could you spell it out for me?" This shows respect and makes sure you get the correct information. Another useful phrase is when you want someone to wait for you politely. You can say, "Could you please hold on for one moment?" These small, polite sentences make a big difference. If you master them, phone calls in English will feel much less stressful. You will be ready to handle the conversation clearly and confidently, and you'll get the help you need without confusion. Now, let's move into another world of English, the professional workplace. Language at work is often more formal and specific. Every job has its own work language. If you understand this special way of speaking, you'll feel more confident and be more successful. Let's follow the story of Grace. Grace just started her very first job as a junior project assistant at a large tech company. She was excited, but she also felt nervous and a little out of place. In her very first big team meeting, she felt like she had landed on another planet. Her manager, Mr. Evans, was leading the discussion about a new software launch. He said things like, "Okay, team, we need to make sure we manage expectations with the client on this. And Liam, could you and Sarah touch base offline about the marketing budget?" This is getting complicated. For now, let's table this discussion and circle back to it next week. Grace tried hard to take notes, but she found herself writing down strange phrases she didn't understand. She wrote, "Manage expectations. Touch base offline. Table this discussion.
Circle back."
It felt like a secret code. After the meeting, Grace felt overwhelmed. She worried that her team might think she wasn't smart, but she decided to ask for help. She went to her friendly colleague, Mark, the same person who once helped Clara with idioms. She showed him her list of confusing phrases. Mark smiled and explained, "To manage expectations means making sure the client doesn't expect more than we can actually deliver. To touch base offline means to talk privately after the meeting, not in front of everyone. To table a discussion means to postpone it until later. To circle back means to return to that topic in the future." He also gave her important advice. He said, "Don't be afraid to ask in the meeting. It's perfectly okay to say, 'Excuse me, I'm not familiar with that term. Could you explain what you mean by key takeaway?'" Grace took his advice seriously. In the next meeting, someone said something about improving our bandwidth. Grace politely raised her hand and asked, "Could you explain what that means in this context?" Her manager was happy to explain. He said it simply meant increasing the team's ability to handle more work. No one thought she was silly. In fact, her manager later told her he appreciated her question because it showed she was paying attention and wanted to learn. That day, Grace felt empowered. She realized that professional language is not a wall blocking her. It's a tool she can learn step by step until she feels like part of the team. Let's practice a few of these professional phrases together. Repeat after me. Let's touch base about this later.
Good.
What is the key takeaway from this meeting? Excellent. I'll follow up with you by email.
Perfect.
These little phrases are powerful. When you learn and use them, you show confidence and professionalism in the workplace. Becoming comfortable with the specific language of your workplace is a huge step toward professional confidence and success. It shows that you belong and that you are an active, contributing member of the team. In Grace's story, we saw how she learned the secret code of meetings and professional phrases. But the workplace is not only about meetings. Much of modern communication happens in writing, especially in emails and messages. This brings us to another important skill, understanding the nuances of digital communication. The way we write an email to our boss is very different from the way we send a quick text to a friend. The tone, the level of formality, even the abbreviations we use, they all change depending on the situation. Let me share a story about my friend Maria. Maria worked remotely for a company based in the UK. One day, she received a very short email from her manager. It said, "Hi Maria, FYI, the report is due ASAP. Please send it over. THX." Maria's heart sank. She read the email over and over again. The phrase ASAP sounded so demanding. The word THX instead of thanks felt cold and dismissive. She thought her manager was angry at her. Maria spent the whole morning feeling anxious. She rushed to finish the report, convinced she was in trouble. Later that day, she had a video call with her colleague, a friendly woman named Chloe. Maria told Chloe about the email and how worried it had made her. Chloe laughed gently and said, "Oh, don't worry about that at all. That's just how he writes emails. He's always busy." Chloe explained that in a fast-paced work environment, short, direct emails are very common. Abbreviations like FYI, for your information, and ASAP, as soon as possible, are used to save time, not to be rude. And THX is simply a quick way of saying thanks. Maria was relieved. She realized that tone is very difficult to understand in writing. What she had read, as angry, was simply meant to be efficient. Let's compare that with a text message from a friend. A friend might write, "Hey, want to grab coffee later? It'll be so fun." Here, the extra letters, the exclamation marks, and the emojis all show excitement and friendliness. But if your boss sent you a message like that, it would feel very strange. This taught Maria an important lesson. Always pay attention to context. Ask yourself, who is writing the message? What is our relationship? Is this formal or informal? Understanding these unwritten rules is the key to successful digital communication. Let's practice by looking at two short examples. Example 1, formal email. Please find the attached document for your review. I would appreciate your feedback by the end of the day Friday. Here the tone is formal and polite. Phrases like "please find the attached" and "I would appreciate" are common in professional writing. Example 2, casual text. Hey, did you see that doc from Sarah? LMK, what you think? Here the tone is casual and friendly. LMK means let me know. This is how colleagues might chat if they're already comfortable with each other. Recognizing these differences will help you in two ways. You'll understand the messages you receive more clearly. You'll also be able to write your own emails and texts in the right style, avoiding confusion and showing the right level of professionalism. Misunderstandings like the one Maria experienced can happen anywhere, but the good news is that with practice, you can avoid them. Now, let's move from the digital world back into a very practical face-to-face scenario that many people find stressful. Returning a faulty item to a store. This situation can make anyone nervous because it requires you to stay clear, calm, and confident, even if you're frustrated.
Let me tell you about my friend Alex.
Alex had just bought a brand new coffee maker. He was very excited to try it out. He imagined waking up every morning to the smell of fresh coffee. But when he got home and plugged it in, something went wrong. Water started leaking everywhere, and the machine made a strange noise. It didn't heat up at all. Alex was disappointed and a little annoyed. The next day, he took the coffee maker back to the department store. When he arrived at the customer service desk, the clerk smiled and said, "Hi, how can I help you?" Alex knew it was important to stay polite, so he calmly explained, "Hello. I bought this coffee maker here yesterday, and I'm afraid it's faulty." Notice the word faulty. It's a very clear and professional way to say something is broken or doesn't work correctly. Then Alex gave details. When I tried to use it, it started leaking from the bottom, and it wouldn't heat up the water. Being specific is very important. The more clearly you describe the problem, the easier it is for the clerk to understand and help you. Alex also had his receipt ready, which made the process much smoother. I have the receipt right here. The clerk examined the coffee maker and said, "I'm very sorry to hear that. I can see the problem. We can offer you a full refund, or you can exchange it for a new one." Alex thought for a moment and replied, "I'd like to exchange it for a new one, please. I think I was just unlucky with this particular machine." The clerk processed the exchange, gave him a new coffee maker, and apologized again for the inconvenience. Alex left the store satisfied, not because everything went perfectly, but because he handled the situation politely and clearly. The key was his approach.
He was polite.
He was specific. He was prepared. He focused on the problem, not on blaming the person helping him. This is much more effective than angrily saying, "This is broken," without giving details. Let's practice the key phrases from Alex's experience. Repeat after me. "Hello. I'd like to return this item. I'm afraid it's faulty. It isn't working properly. Could I please get a refund? Could I exchange this for a new one?" Excellent. With these phrases, you'll be ready to handle a store return with confidence. This is a situation where clear listening and speaking are not just for convenience, but for your health and well-being. Let's imagine a woman named Elena. Elena had been feeling unwell for several days. She had a headache that just wouldn't go away, and she felt unusually tired. Finally, she decided to make an appointment with her doctor. When she sat down in the doctor's office, she noticed her heart was beating faster than usual. She felt a little nervous. The doctor walked in, smiled, and said, "Good morning, Elena. So, what seems to be the trouble?" This is a very common and gentle way for doctors to ask what's wrong. Elena took a deep breath and tried to be as specific as possible. Instead of just saying, "I feel sick," she described her symptoms in detail. "I've had a persistent headache for 3 days. It's a dull ache, mostly behind my eyes. I've also been feeling very fatigued, much more tired than usual." Let's pause and look at the words she used. Persistent headache better than "I have a headache." It means the headache continues for a long time. Dull ache describes the type of pain. Not sharp, but steady and uncomfortable. Fatigued, a more precise, formal word for extremely tired. The doctor listened carefully, nodding as Elena spoke. Then she asked some follow-up questions. "Have you had a fever? Are you experiencing any nausea? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the pain?" Elena answered each one clearly. "No, I don't think I have a fever."
No nausea.
I would say the pain is about a 4 out of 10. It's not terrible, but it's always there. After an examination, the doctor gave her diagnosis. It sounds like you have a tension headache, likely brought on by stress and lack of sleep. I don't think it's anything serious, but I'd like you to get some more rest. I'm also going to write you a prescription for some pain relief. The most important part for Elena was making sure she understood the instructions correctly. She used a very powerful technique called checking for understanding.
She said,
Okay, so just to confirm, you think it's a tension headache and I need to rest more and take the medicine you prescribe. Is that correct? The doctor smiled and replied, That's exactly right. The pharmacist will explain how to take the medication. If you're not feeling better in a few days, please make another appointment. Elena left the doctor's office feeling much better. Not just because she had a diagnosis, but because she had successfully managed the entire conversation in her second language. She described her problem clearly, answered questions directly, confirmed the instructions. In a medical situation, never be afraid to ask for clarification. Your health is the most important thing. Here are some useful phrases you can use. I'm sorry, could you explain what that word means? Could you please write that down for me? Just to confirm, you said I should take this medicine twice a day, correct? With these phrases, you'll feel more confident and safe during any doctor's visit. And now, let's move to another important skill, understanding different English accents. Because English is a global language, you will hear it spoken in many different ways, and learning to adapt will make your communication much stronger. There is no single correct English accent. The way someone speaks in Texas is different from someone in Scotland, which is different again from someone in Australia or India. All of these are English, and all of them are valid. Let's think about a character named David. David got a remote job working in customer support for a global travel company. His role was to answer calls from customers all over the world. On his very first day, he was nervous. And soon, he discovered just how many ways English could sound. His first call was from a woman in southern England. She asked him to help her book a bath. David froze. Why did she want to book a bath in a hotel? That didn't make sense. He asked her to repeat, and she said it again. Finally, he realized she was actually saying path, a path to the airport. The broad A sound in her accent made path sound like bath to him. His next call was from a man in Sydney, Australia. The man was talking about his plans for the day, but at the end of every sentence, his voice rose as if he were asking a question. I'm going to the beach today? David was confused. He replied, Are you asking me? The man laughed and explained that in Australian English, it's common to use a rising tone even for statements. Later, David spoke with a man from India. The man used beautiful, formal English, but the rhythm of his sentences was unique. David had to listen with full concentration to follow along. By the end of his first week, David's head was spinning. He felt like he had been listening to 5 different languages, not just one. He spoke to his supervisor about it, and she gave him excellent advice. She said, Don't focus too much on the accent. Focus on the key words in the sentence. And outside of work, immerse yourself in different accents. Watch a British movie one night. Watch an Australian TV show the next. Listen to an American podcast during your commute. The more you expose your brain to these different sounds, the more natural they will feel. David followed her advice. He started watching BBC News to get used to different British accents. He enjoyed Australian cooking shows. He listened to American podcasts on his way to the gym. Slowly but surely, it became easier. He learned to recognize the broad vowels of a Scottish speaker, the smooth rhythm of a South African accent, and the musical rising tone of an Australian. He realized that every accent had its own logic, its own music. The key was exposure and patience. And David also learned something even more important. You should never feel shy about your own accent. Your accent is part of who you are. It shows your background and your journey. The goal is not to erase your accent or to copy someone else's. The goal is clear communication. And part of achieving that is training your ear to be a global listener, open, flexible, and adaptable to the wonderful diversity of the English language. So I encourage you, seek out different accents. Watch a TV show from a country you're curious about. Find a YouTuber from another part of the world. Listen to how people really speak. It's not only effective for improving your listening skills, but it's also fun. Now, all the stories and scenarios we've discussed so far have focused on short-term interactions. Ordering a coffee, asking for directions, returning an item, visiting a doctor, answering a phone call. These are essential skills. But a huge part of feeling truly fluent and confident in a language is something deeper, building connections and participating in a community over a longer period of time. This is a different kind of challenge. So let me share with you the story of Matteo and how joining a book club transformed not only his English, but also his life in a new city. Matteo had moved to Portland, Oregon for a new job. His colleagues were kind, and he was good at his work. But after a few months, he began to feel lonely. Matteo's conversations at work were mostly about work. In the evenings, he would return to his small apartment and feel isolated. He knew his English was enough for professional tasks, but he wanted something more. He wanted to practice English in a social, relaxed way. He wanted to make friends and feel part of a community. One afternoon, Matteo was at the local library. He glanced at a bulletin board and noticed a flyer. Join the Northwood Library Book Club. We meet the first Tuesday of every month to discuss great fiction. All are welcome. Matteo's heart skipped a beat. He loved reading. This could be perfect. But then fear crept in. His inner voice started asking questions. What if they all talk really fast and I can't keep up? What if they use complicated literary words I don't know? What if I try to share my opinion and it sounds silly in English? This anxiety is completely normal for anyone learning a language. But Matteo decided to be brave. He wrote down the date and time of the meeting. The night of the first meeting, he was so nervous he almost didn't go. But he forced himself out the door. When he arrived, about 8 people were sitting in a circle, chatting. A friendly woman with gray hair, the leader named Sarah, smiled and welcomed him warmly. Hi there, welcome. We're just about to get started. Matteo sat down, his hands feeling clammy. The book they had read was one he enjoyed, which helped a little. As the discussion began, his fears started to come true. The members spoke with passion and speed. They used words he had never heard before, foreshadowing a hint about what will happen later. Character arc, how a character changes throughout the story. They talked about the protagonist, the main character, and the book's central themes. Matteo understood the main points, but he felt lost in the details. For almost the entire hour, he stayed silent, just listening and nodding. His mind was racing, constantly translating everything back and forth from his native language. Near the end, Sarah looked directly at him. Matteo, you've been very quiet. What did you think of the ending? Everyone turned to look at him. His face grew hot. He searched his mind for the perfect sentence in English, but all he could manage was a simple, quiet response. I liked it. I thought it was a surprise. The group smiled and nodded, and the conversation moved on. Matteo left the meeting feeling disappointed in himself. He thought he had failed. But then something shifted in his thinking. He realized he had two choices: quit or prepare for next time. He chose preparation. For the next month, Matteo created a strategy. A week before the next meeting, after finishing the book, he went online and searched for discussion questions about the book. He read articles and reviews that analyzed the themes and symbols. He learned new vocabulary and wrote words in his notebook, including symbolism, metaphor, narrative structure. Then he did the most important thing. He thought about his own opinions. What did he think about the main character? What was his favorite part of the story? He wrote down 3 simple sentences in his notebook expressing his ideas, and he practiced saying them out loud in his apartment. Matteo felt a little silly practicing out loud by himself, but he knew it was important. When the first Tuesday of the next month arrived, he walked into the library room feeling different. He was still nervous, but he was also prepared. This time, he was not just a passive listener. He was ready to participate. He sat down and listened carefully as the discussion started. About 20 minutes into the meeting, Sarah, the group leader, asked a question about a recurring image in the book. Why do you think the author kept mentioning that old, withered tree? There was a brief silence. This was Matteo's chance. He took a deep breath, glanced at his notes, and spoke. I have a thought on that. I thought the symbolism of the tree was very powerful. Maybe it represented the protagonist's feelings of decay and hopelessness at the beginning of the story.
He paused.
The room was quiet for a second. Then Tom, another member, said, That's a great point, Matteo. I hadn't thought of it that way, and it connects to how she felt about her childhood home, too. Another member added their thoughts, building on Matteo's idea. A real discussion was happening, and he had started it. A huge smile spread across his face. This was a breakthrough moment. For the rest of the meeting, Matteo spoke only once more, sharing a prepared thought. But that was enough. He felt like he truly belonged in the group. Matteo's journey didn't end there. He continued attending the meetings every month. He still prepared beforehand, but over time he needed his notes less and less. He began to understand the literary terms naturally, like foreshadowing, symbolism, and character arc. He became more confident expressing his opinions spontaneously, without needing to practice first. He even learned to disagree politely using phrases like, I see what you mean, but I had a different interpretation. But the biggest change wasn't just about the books. Matteo began connecting with people. Before and after the meetings, he would chat with other members. He learned that Tom was a high school history teacher and that Sarah had a beautiful garden. They talked about movies, local events, and their families. The book club members became his friends. 6 months after that first terrifying meeting, Matteo walked out of the library laughing with Tom and another member about a funny scene in the book. They were heading to a nearby cafe for coffee. Matteo was no longer just practicing English. He was living it, enjoying conversation, making friends, and participating fully in the community. Matteo's story teaches important lessons. Persistence is key. Don't give up after one difficult attempt. Preparation can turn nervousness into confidence. Most importantly, the goal of learning a language is to connect with people, share ideas, and build a community. Now, let's move back to the professional world. Matteo's story showed us how to grow socially, but work situations can be just as challenging. It's one thing to understand language in a meeting like Grace did, but it's another thing to use language to lead a team, manage different personalities, and guide a project from start to finish. This requires a higher level of listening, speaking, and decision-making skills. This is the story of Ella and her first experience leading a project. Ella worked in the marketing department of a clothing company. She had been with the company for about a year and was performing well. Her manager, impressed by her skills and dedication, gave her a new responsibility, leading a project for the first time. Ella felt excited but nervous. Leading a project meant she had to communicate clearly with her team, listen to different ideas and opinions, solve problems as they came up, make decisions that affected the whole team. This was a big step. Ella realized she couldn't just rely on her previous skills. She needed to practice active listening, clear speaking, and planning in a professional setting. Isla had been asked to lead a small team of 3 to develop a proposal for a new marketing campaign. She felt excited and nervous at the same time. This was her chance to show what she could do, but she had never led a project before. Her team included 2 colleagues. Ben, a young creative designer, full of energy and big ideas. David, an older, experienced data analyst, very smart but quiet and often skeptical. Their first brainstorming meeting was challenging. Isla started by saying, "Okay, team, thanks for meeting. The goal today is to come up with some initial concepts for the new campaign." Ben immediately jumped in. "I have an idea. Let's hire a famous celebrity, fly them to Paris, and do a huge photo shoot in front of the Eiffel Tower. It would be epic." Isla's heart sank a little. The idea was exciting, but the budget was small and the plan was impractical. She couldn't just say, "Ben, that's a terrible idea." That would crush his creativity. Instead, she used positive redirection. "Ben, I love your ambition. That's a really high-impact concept. Let's put that on the big ideas board. For our proposal today, let's also try to think of some options that would fit our budget. How could we create that same exciting Parisian feel, but on a smaller scale?" Notice her language. "I love your ambition" validates the idea. High-impact concept shows appreciation for creativity. Then she redirects the idea in a practical way. Next, she faced David, who was sitting silently, listening with a frown. She knew he had valuable knowledge, but he wouldn't speak unless asked directly. She used the language of inclusion. "David, with your experience in data analysis, what's your take on this approach?" By asking a specific question related to his expertise, she invited him to share his opinion. David thought for a moment and replied, "Well, the data shows that lifestyle images, people wearing our clothes in realistic, everyday situations, perform 30% better than high-fashion studio shots. The Paris idea is a risk." Isla's careful language had 2 effects. She managed Ben's creativity and drew out David's critical insight. A week later, the team faced another challenge: disagreement. Ben had created design mock-ups that were beautiful, but Isla felt they didn't match the client's brand. She needed to give constructive feedback without discouraging him. She scheduled a one-on-one meeting and started with praise. "Ben, these designs are stunning. The color palette is fantastic, and your graphic skills are amazing." After he felt valued, she gently explained her concern. "My only concern is about the tone. It feels very modern and edgy, but our client's brand is a bit more traditional and classic. Do you see what I mean?" By phrasing it as her concern and asking, "Do you see what I mean?" she made it a shared problem, not an accusation. Together, they adjusted the designs, and the result was even better. Finally, the team prepared the joint presentation for their manager. This required organization and delegation. Isla said, "Okay, let's outline the presentation. Then, could you prepare the visuals? David, could you summarize the data and results? I'll draft the speaking points and structure. By using clear language, recognizing strengths, and gently guiding the team, Isla turned a stressful project into a successful collaboration. She learned that leading a team isn't about being bossy. It's about listening, encouraging, and organizing effectively. Isla wanted to make sure her team knew their roles and felt included. She said, "I think it makes sense for me to introduce the project goals. David, you would be perfect to present the data and research that supports our strategy. And then you can walk the manager through the creative concepts and the final designs." How does that sound to everyone? By suggesting a clear plan and asking for agreement, Isla made everyone feel like part of a team. She showed that leadership isn't about giving orders, but about guiding, supporting, and uniting people. They practiced together, gave each other feedback, and when they delivered the presentation, they were confident and organized. Their manager was very impressed. Isla's big lesson: leadership in English isn't about having the best ideas yourself. It's about using language to bring out the best in others, to encourage, explain, and connect. This level of communication turns someone who speaks English into a truly effective professional. Now, let's talk about another important advanced skill: handling disagreements politely in English. Disagreeing can feel uncomfortable in any language, but in English, there are ways to express a different opinion respectfully without hurting the other person's feelings. It's not about winning. It's about sharing your view while keeping the relationship positive. Let's imagine two friends, Liam and Chloe. They just watched a new superhero movie. Liam says, "Wow, that movie was incredible. The special effects were the best I've ever seen." Chloe didn't enjoy it as much. Instead of saying, "You're wrong, it was a bad movie," she says politely, "I can see why you'd say that. The effects were amazing. But for me, the story was a little weak." Notice her technique. She acknowledged Liam's opinion. "I can see why you'd say that." This shows she listened and respected him. She added, "For me, to show it's her personal perspective, not a fact." This softens the disagreement. Liam can respond politely too. "Oh, really? That's interesting. I have a different take on it. I thought the story was quite compelling." Here, Liam uses "I have a different take on it" to share his opinion politely. If they realize they won't agree, a friendly way to end the discussion is, "Well, let's agree to disagree." This phrase resolves the disagreement without hard feelings. These kinds of phrases are very useful. They let you participate in more complex conversations, navigate social situations with confidence and respect, avoid arguments while still expressing your ideas. Let's practice one important phrase. Repeat after me. "I see your point, but I have a slightly different perspective." Having phrases like this ready in your mind can make a big difference in conversational confidence. Next, we will explore proactive learning strategies, ways to improve your English every day and stay confident in any situation. One of the best ways to improve your speaking is to find a language partner. A language partner is someone you can practice speaking English with regularly. This could be a native English speaker who wants to learn your language, or another English learner who is at a similar level to you. The goal is to have real conversations in a relaxed, low-pressure environment. Where to find a language partner? There are many ways to find someone to practice with. Apps and websites made for language exchange. These connect you with people all over the world. Local groups in your city. Many cafes or libraries host language exchange meetups. What to talk about? When you meet your partner, you can start with simple topics.
Your day.
Your hobbies. Your family. As you get more comfortable, you can talk about specific topics. A movie you both watched. A news article you both read. The key is to make it a two-way conversation. Ask your partner questions. Listen carefully to their answers. The most important part is feedback. Giving and receiving feedback. Feedback can be tricky. You want to help without being rude. To ask for feedback politely, you can say, "If you hear me make a mistake, please feel free to correct me. I really want to learn." When giving feedback, be gentle. For example, instead of saying, "You said that wrong," you can say, a more common way to say that is,
Or,
"I noticed you said go to the store." The correct past tense is went. Having a language partner gives you consistent real-world practice, builds confidence, and can even lead to new friendships. Using movies and music to learn. Many learners say, "I watch movies in English," but often they just watch passively. To learn actively, you need a strategy. Step 1. Watch a scene with subtitles in your own language. This helps you understand the plot. Step 2. Watch the same scene with English subtitles. Now, you connect the English sounds with the English words you see. Pay attention to new vocabulary or interesting phrases. Write them down. Look up any idioms you don't know. For example, "He's pulling your leg" means someone is joking with you. Step 3. Watch the scene without subtitles. Try to understand just by listening. You will be surprised at how much you can understand. Step 4. Pick 1 or 2 short lines from the scene and practice shadowing. Say the line exactly like the actor, copying their pronunciation and rhythm. This method turns watching a movie into an effective language lesson, not just entertainment. The same method works for music. Don't just listen to English songs. Find the lyrics online and read them while listening. Try to understand the story of the song. Songs are full of idioms, slang, and poetic expressions. Music is fun and very effective for expanding your vocabulary. One of the best ways to improve your English is to learn actively using media you enjoy. This can be movies, TV shows, or music that you like. When you enjoy what you're learning with, it becomes easier and more fun, and you will naturally spend more time practicing. The power of a voice journal. Another very effective way to improve your English is to keep a voice journal. You may have already tried recording yourself briefly, but now let's make it a daily habit. At the end of each day, take out your phone. Open the voice memo app. Talk in English for just 2 or 3 minutes. You can talk about anything. Summarize your day. Talk about your plans for tomorrow. Describe something that made you happy or something that was challenging. Even read a short paragraph from a book out loud. The most important thing is to speak freely and without pressure. No one else needs to hear this. It is just for you. Listening to your progress. After a week of recording, listen to your first recording and then your most recent one. You will notice your progress. Maybe you are speaking a little faster. Maybe you are using more complex sentences. Maybe you are hesitating less. This practice does 2 amazing things. It helps you speak English every day, making it a normal part of your routine. It gives you a real record of your improvement. On days when you feel like you are not improving, listening to a recording from a month ago will remind you of how far you have come. This is a very powerful motivator. Remember, learning English is a journey. Improving your listening and speaking skills is not a destination. It is a journey. Learning English is a continuous process. You learn. You try. You make mistakes. Then you learn some more. The stories and techniques we have shared are tools you can use every day. Mateo's story shows you how to find your voice in a new community. Isla's story shows you how to lead a team using English. Every interaction, big or small, is an opportunity to grow. Be curious and patient. Immerse yourself in English. Ask questions when you don't understand. Listen to different accents and try to notice the rhythm and sounds. Be patient and kind to yourself. Celebrate the small victories. Ordering a coffee successfully. Understanding directions. Having a pleasant chat with a stranger. Each of these is a step forward on your journey to fluency. Continuing your learning. We hope these stories, examples, and tips have been helpful and motivating. The path to fluency is built one conversation at a time, and by spending this time practicing, you have already taken an important step. If you want to continue improving your English with more real-life stories and practical advice, make sure to subscribe to our podcast, Super English Talks. We upload new lessons regularly to help you learn English naturally and enjoyably. Turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. We are excited to be part of your English learning journey, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening.